Okay. All glories to Mother Ratasha. All glories to the religion of love. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to our Supreme Lord. O Lord God, please help us about His teachings, be an example of love in the world. Jai. Please forgive me for the background noise. That noise wasn't here when we first set up for class. it came. Oh, it just sounds like modes of passion and ignorance. So, speaking of these modes of material nature, we're going to be continuing our hearing from the Bhagavad-Gita. And this is a verse, it's actually a few verses that Mother Ratasha gave class on, and I didn't have too many notes, unfortunately, to make a full class, so I'll be supplementing today's hearing with not only commentary from Mother Ratasha, but also commentary from A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is the translator and commentary writer for this translation of Bhagavad Gita we're hearing from. So, let's get started then. So, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, verses 20 through 23. And I'll try again to pronounce the Sanskrit to my best ability. Yatro paramate chitang nirudhang yoga sevaya yatra chaivatmanatmanang pasyanatmani tushyati sukham matyantikang yatad buddhi grahyam matindriyam veti yatra nadaivayang sthitas chalati tatvata yang labdva cha parang labhang manyate nadhikang tata yasmin sthito na dukhena guruna pi vichalyate tang vidya dukha sangyoga viyogang yoga sangitam. The stage of perfection is called trance or samadhi, when one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness and enjoys himself through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. Jai. So, very nice. Oh my goodness, I apologize. The microphone's picking up the absolute nonsense going on behind me. Sorry about that. This is Kali Yuga. Here we are. And funny enough, we fled another place where it was too noisy. There was people with chainsaws cutting down a tree, and neighbors shouting at each other doing homework or work around their house. And then we came to a park. We thought it'd be nice and quiet. Set up everything for class, and lo and behold, nope. But anywho, what can you do? This is the world we live in. So, this first part. The stage of perfection is called trance or samadhi when one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. Yoga. All right, what is yoga? So, what is the idea that we typically have when we hear the word yoga? You usually think of hippy-dippy loose clothes or some girls wearing leggings and doing a bunch of postures in the gym or Instagram or something like that. Well, that's what it's not all on Instagram nowadays, but that's what we kind of think of yoga. All these types of bodily postures, this kind of, chic type of exercise. That when we hear the word yoga, that's what popularly comes to mind. But that is not yoga. Yoga, the word itself means to yoke. Oh my goodness, sorry, they're speaking obscenities behind me. I wonder, should we just go ahead and move and start over? It's quite embarrassing for them. Oh well, what can you do? We're taught to.
I can hardly hear it anyway, to be honest.
I'm.
Just get some noise in the background. And that's it.
Oh, thank the Lord for Discord's background filtering for VC. Unfortunately, for those who are going to watch the recording later on, they're going to hear everything picked up through this microphone of mine. So, anywho, yoga means to yoke. It is the linking with God. That is what yoga means. And in the scriptures, it describes a ladder that goes down to the lowest regions of this world, ascending all the way up through all the worlds to the reach to the spiritual sky. And this ladder is known as yoga, but it's called by different names according to which rung of that ladder you hold on to. And there's many forms: Hatha Yoga, Gyan Yoga, Raja Yoga, Kriya Yoga, Karma Yoga, Buddhi Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. There's many different forms of yoga, right? But in essence, it is linking with the Supreme, linking with God. And there's many different forms or ways of linking with God, many different traditions, styles, practices. But the yoga practice that's more or less being explained in the Bhagavad-Gita, and which in essence is the predecessor to what we see all the people doing these postures, that would be the principles based on the Patanjali system from the Yoga Sutras. Patanjali was a great sage, and this system is also known as Ashtanga Yoga, or the Eightfold Path. So, asana, you probably heard this word. That is the sitting postures or the different positions people do, in Hatha Yoga, right? They have pigeon pose, tree pose, mountain pose, corpse pose, baby pose, all these different poses or asanas, right? Well, that word asana is actually part of the Ashtanga Yoga system. So, for the sake of education, we can give a little brief overview of what that actually is. So, these 8 steps are yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. So, yama, these are the do-nots. These are moral restrictions for a pious life, such as ahimsa, which is non-violence, being vegetarian, being peaceful. Satya, truthfulness or non-falsehood, not lying. Asteya, no stealing. Brahmacharya, chastity or abstinence from sex life. And aparigraha, non-possessiveness. So, think of all the different yoga studios out there. They don't come close to touching these moral principles right off the get-go. And then the second would be niyama, the do's, what you're supposed to do. So the first is do nots, next is the do's, such as shaucha, which means cleanliness of mind and body. Santosha, which means contentment, being satisfied with your lot in life and your circumstances. Tapas, which means austerity or penances, sacrifice. Svadhyaya, which is study of the scriptures or self-introspection. And Ishvara Pranidhana, which is surrendering to God. So these are the first two steps of the Ashtanga Yoga system. First, moral restrictions, guidelines, and dues that you accept. Then you get to asana. And as far as all those various postures I aforementioned, in the actual Yoga Sutras, for asana, all it says is the meditation posture should be steady and comfortable. That's it. Steady, just sit down in a comfortable position. That's all it says. So all of the things that we know of, all these so-called postures and asanas, they're actually modern creations. Many of which are just based off calisthenics and bodily exercises, and they do have Ayurvedic benefits to different, bodily systems for health and whatnot, of course. But they've been around for the past, 1 to 300 years, most of them, and then 500 years, you can lump the bulk of them. So they're not really ancient. In fact, the original asanas, the first written down, was basically observing saintly persons who would sit in meditation and just recording how they sat down and then giving it a name. That's how it started. But asana just means sit down comfortably so you won't be disturbed. The next is pranayama, which is breath control. And then pratyahara, withdrawing the senses. Pratyahara, withdrawing the senses from all their sense objects. So not being distracted, bringing all your senses inward, not exactly shutting them off, but restricting them from engaging with their outward senses. Sense objects, I should say. And then dharana, which is fixed concentration, laser pointed focus. Then dhyana, meditative absorption, just putting your all into what you're doing. And then finally, samadhi, which is the state of trance, also called state of oneness. So, and in this yoga system, there are two kinds of samadhi. They're called sampragnata samadhi and asapragnata samadhi. And I know I'm throwing lots of terms at you all, so this is just a brief overview of what the Ashtanga system is. So, sampragnata samadhi is when one becomes situated in the transcendental position by various philosophical researches. And asampragnata samadhi is when there is no longer any connection with mundane pleasure, for one is then transcendental to all sorts of happiness derived from the senses. So this is that Ashtanga yoga, right? Of which asana, hatha, what we have today is not even a reflection of what the actual yoga system is. And if you are a student of the Bhagavad-Gita, you'll be familiar with a chapter where it's given instructions on how to perform it. You have to sit on a particular mat in a particular environment, away from all distractions, and it requires total dedication. It's not easy, especially in today's society, today's age of Kali Yuga. We don't have such opportunities to be completely free of distractions. I mean, case in point, this present moment, and the neighbors behind me, throwing a fit at each other. There's lots of distractions. And neither can we be in a peaceful environment and live off the land easily with fruits and roots and clean water from the river. No, everything's polluted and is not. This system of spiritual elevation was recommended in a long bygone age, actually in Satya Yuga. And in that age, according to the Vedic scriptures, humans lived much longer. In fact, up to 100,000 years. Oof! That's millions of years ago, mind you. And you need to live that long because this type of very hard, austere yogic practice is so difficult, and it takes many, 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 many years, hundreds of years to perfect, which we basically can't do that in this day and age. And to give you an idea, pranayama, which is the breath control, it says in the Vedic scriptures that there are 5 airs that circulate around the heart. Air going up, air going down, left, right, diagonal, and the yogi is able, through very austere practice, to control the life air within himself and completely bring it to a standstill, so that he can, without any distraction, be fully immersed in meditating upon the form of the Lord within the heart. That's the ultimate aim of this style of yoga, this mystical yoga, or Ashtanga, Patanjali yoga. But that is impractical in this day and age. And I'll touch on that more a little bit later. So, this next part. So the stage of perfection is called trance or samadhi. So the aim is to become, again, perfect. Now, we're already perfect. We're already eternal, beloved lovers, servants of God, just covered over by the illusory energy, by ignorance, the forgetfulness of our true self. So this process, this yoga, this linking again with God, is a purification of that covering, so that we can come back again to our true state of perfection. And it says here, next verse, or next line, this is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. Now, Mother Atasha, she commented that first, the mind must be cleared by yoga, the linking to God. We have to first purify our minds. Or, as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu called this process, Chetto Darpana Marjanam, cleansing the dust from the mirror of the mind. You know, and the Bhagavad-Gita, as I said, mentions, we have to live in an isolated, holy place. We have to make great sacrifices, perform great penance in order to, abide by this particular style of yoga, which is impractical in this age. But for us today, we have a much simpler process. More direct approach to purifying and clearing the mind is simply, as we've taught in the peace process, to observe and see just what's going on in the mind. What's it saying? What's it doing? Etc. Chant your rounds, chant the holy names, keep the mind busy with service for God, focus the mind on this, and although the mind is very, very strong, you're stronger. It just takes practice. Like working out. Slowly, slowly you're making progress, getting stronger. It's the same with our minds. The more we give it our attention, observe, we're reprogramming, reconditioning the mind to not be our obstacle, but to be our ally. And the mind, by nature, if it's not focusing on the good, it'll naturally go towards the dark. The mind loves to focus on the negative, the drama, the bad things, the awful headlines, right? The mind loves to seek pleasure in dark things. So we get there's greater pleasure to be had in the light, but we just have to keep retraining the mind because it doesn't know better. And again, it's not easy, but it is possible to train the mind. Just don't get upset when it goes wild, which it will. Just keep bringing it back. Keep bringing it back. In this next line it says, in that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness and enjoys himself through transcendental senses. Well, that sounds nice. Situated in boundless, unlimited, transcendental happiness. Mother Natasha taught in that state of love, our original spiritual consciousness, the spirit soul experiences ever increasing knowledge and bliss. Ever increasing. The love keeps growing and growing and growing. It doesn't end. It's ad infinitum. So much love. It's boundless. And that's when we experience that through our transcendental senses. So first you must purify, cleanse your senses, spiritualize them. Spiritualize your heart and mind. Come back to your true state, which is just waiting to be experienced. It just needs to remove the covering. And Bhaktivedanta Swami, in his purpose to these verses, he teaches that by the practice of yoga, one becomes gradually detached from material concepts. This is the primary characteristic of the yoga principle. Right? Becoming, or Mother Tasha would teach, you give up a lesser taste for a higher taste. Detaching from matter but attaching yourself to spirit, or material activities to devotional service. And after this, one becomes situated in trance or samadhi, which means the yogi realizes the supersoul through transcendental mind and intelligence. So, now this yogic practice, Ashtanga Yoga, it's a very mechanical process. It involves great control of one's body and breath and everything. It's very, very austere. You have to be very disciplined in order to make headways in this practice. And it's practically impossible in this day and age. Maybe a few rare souls, but it's not recommended for this age because of the difficulty. In fact, we have a much better recommendation from the scriptures on how to become self-realized in this age. I'll get to that. So, by this mechanical means, controlling that life air within, the yogi is able to perceive the Lord within the heart, right? Now, as Prabhupada mentions, some unauthorized commentators try to identify the individual soul with the supersoul. Or in other words, trying to see themselves as God, basically, as one with God in a sense that they are the same entity. I am God, you are God, we are God. This is an atheistic philosophy. It's not true. So the monists, as Prabhupada's calling them, monists, basically non-dualists, people who don't believe in duality, that there's no separation between what is known and the knower, or any separation between us, the living entities, and the Supreme Lord. Also known as Advaitins or impersonalists or Mayavadins. So they think that this oneness with God, or oneness with the Supreme, is liberation. But they do not understand the real purpose of the Patanjali system of yoga. No. So the duality of knowledge and knower is not accepted by the non-dualists, but in this verse, transcendental pleasure realized through transcendental senses is accepted, and that pleasure comes from our loving relationship and service with God. We are eternally part and parcel of God as His servants, but we are not God. God is God, and we are the infinitesimal living entities. In one sense, yes, there is nothing but God. Ultimately, everything is a manifestation of His spiritual and material energies and potencies, of course. In one sense, there's nothing non-different from God. But at the same time, though everything is in God and God in all things, He stands apart so that love may exist. He still has His separate personality, just as you and I and everyone else has a unique, individual, conscious personality. Just as God is his own person. We're not, as Mother Atasha taught, all just one amorphous blob. No, we're individual entities. And these monists, as Prabhupada's saying, they don't accept the concept of transcendental pleasure. They try to negate that because they fear that it will jeopardize their misguided theory of oneness. But the devotee, however, who accepts the teachings as they are given in the scriptures by God to bring us towards him in love, relishes great transcendental pleasure and bliss. The personalists are totally blissed out in love of God. But these monists, they don't experience love because they think they're the supreme and therefore totally hooked by the illusory energy's final snare, which is the concept that you are God. It's a very atheistic and arrogant notion. So, this oneness with the Supreme is called Kaivalyam by the monists. But according to Patanjali, this Kaivalyam is an internal or transcendental potency, by which the living entity becomes aware of his constitutional position as the eternal servant of God, not non-different with God. So, and regarding this transcendental happiness, the concept of nirvana, and I know you've all heard this word nirvana, and no, I don't mean the 90s grunge band. Nirvana is preliminary and corresponds with this principle of transcendental happiness. In a lot of Buddhist sects and a lot of other teachings, they think that nirvana is the goal of life. And we think nirvana means, enlightenment and bliss. But actually, nirvana means the cessation of all material desires. That's what it means. It's wonderful, but it's not the highest state. Funny story, Mother Tasha was at a restaurant once, and on the menu there was Nirvana chocolate cake. And she told the waitress, Nirvana means just that no material desires. And the lady just laughs, I might have to change that. So, now, above nirvana, there is a state of consciousness where there are tsunamis of pleasure. Where you can't even move. Everything is so wonderful, so beautiful. But there's an even higher state than that. And that's in our relationship with God, wherein we can talk and work, etc. So, in this last part, being established thus, one never departs from the truth. And upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. So, once you've experienced the higher taste, you give up the lower taste. It's quite simple. If you, let's say, like a particular restaurant and you eat there, and then you try another restaurant that's, the food's way better, much better quality. Well, you don't go back to the previous restaurant anymore. You stick with the better one, right? It's a crude example, but what I'm trying to say is once you've had a higher taste, you don't go back to the lower taste, right? And once you've experienced that transcendental, boundless pleasure within the self meaning the soul, experiencing your natural true state as the eternal lover of God, then material pleasures and happinesses which we're all hankering for, not only do they pall in comparison, they lose all attraction altogether. eventually, the more you progress in spiritual life, this is what happens, and it's a great thing. You're no longer subject to the illusion of the material world that these things will bring you happiness, these experiences will make you joyful, which is always limited and temporary and not really happiness at all. Oh, I'm going a little over, but I'll finish off reading a little bit of Prabhupada's commentary, since we had a little distractions earlier. So, when the yogi is once situated in that transcendental position, he is never shaken from it. Unless the yogi is able to reach this position, he is unsuccessful. So, as I mentioned before, Lord Chaitanya states that this is called Chetto Darpana Marjanam, clearance of the impure mirror of the mind, and this clearance is the actual liberation, or the Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam. So in the Bhagavatam, another scripture, it says this is called Svarupena Vyavastitihi, the real life of the living entity. So you regain your real life, not this material illusory life, but you situated in your eternal occupation. So Maya or illusion or ignorance, this state of the conditioned soul, the mind conditioned by material nature, is spiritual life contaminated by material infection. Liberation from this material infection does not mean destruction of the original eternal position of the living entity. No, just the destruction of our illusions of this body and temporary life as the self. So the transcendental pleasure it's spoken of this is our real life. And this is confirmed in the Vedanta Sutras as Anandamayo Bhyasat. This natural transcendental pleasure is the ultimate goal of yoga and is easily achieved in this age, not by these hard penances of mystic yoga practices, controlling the breath and sitting in a mountain or, but easily achieved in this age through the execution of devotional service, or known as Bhakti Yoga, the relinking method through divine love and service. Hearing, chanting, remembering. This is the recommended means of yoga in our present age of Kali Yuga, this age of quarrel and hypocrisy. So after nirvana or material cessation, there is the manifestation of spiritual activities or devotional service of the Lord. And it's funny, Prabhupada's commentary. Today's so-called yoga practice, which involves various sense pleasures, is contradictory. A yogi indulging in sex and intoxication is a mockery. Even those yogis who are attracted by the siddhis, those are the mystic perfections, in the process of yoga, are not perfectly situated either. If the yogis are attracted by the byproducts of yoga, then they cannot attain the true stage of perfection. Persons indulging in the make-show practice of gymnastic feats, or siddhis, mystical abilities, should know that the aim of yoga is lost in that way. The best practice of yoga in this age is devotional service, with the aim of love of God. A lover of God is so happy in his service that he does not aspire after any other happiness. There are many impediments, especially in this age of hypocrisy, to practicing Hatha Yoga, Dhyan Yoga, Gyan Yoga, etc., but there is no such problem in executing Bhakti Yoga, or devotional service. As long as the material body exists, one has to meet the demands of the body, namely eating, sleeping, defending, and mating, but a person who is in pure devotional service, or in God consciousness, does not arouse the senses while meeting the demands of the body. Rather, he accepts the bare necessities of life, making the best use of a bad bargain, and enjoys transcendental happiness in love of God. He is incidentally callous towards such occurrences or accidents like disease, scarcity, and even the death of a most dear relative. But he is always alert to execute his duties in devotional service. Accidents never deviate him from his duty. As stated elsewhere in Bhagavad-Gita 2.14, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, and their disappearance in due course, are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. So, he endures all such incidental occurrences because he knows that they come and go and do not affect his duties. I mean, his devotional service. And in this way he achieves the highest perfection in yoga practice, which for the devotee of God practicing devotional service, bhakti yoga, is love of God. Jai. Pause there. All right. Sorry I went over a bit. Does anyone have any comments or questions? I know I rushed a bit. There was a lot of content in this one, a lot of concepts, a lot of Sanskrit terms. But I wanted to try and give an overview of what that word yoga means and what is popularly considered to be yoga and what the actual yoga system is, which, as Prabhupada said, is somewhat of a mockery of it. It's like a circus compared to the actual performance of this type of mystic yoga practice from Patanjali. But yoga means relinking with God, and the most effective, most streamlined, efficient, direct method of yoga, relinking with God, is the direct service of God, hearing his glories, living out his message, chanting his holy names, constantly being in remembrance of him, rendering service to him and his servants. This is the direct path. This is the easiest path, and it's the only path really that we have any chance of being successful in this age. Successful achieving, again, our natural state of perfection, which is love.
Ramina does yoga, doesn't she?
He says you do yoga.
Yes, I teach yoga, and I tell everyone who comes to my class. To learn. At the beginning, I explain what the real yoga means, and what they are expecting in this class is just physical activity that just help to their body to stay healthy and strong, their mind stay in the present. Then by having their healthy body, healthier mindset, they can do devotional service. So some might not like to hear that. They expect and they think that, this bodily exercise are the real yoga. But I do my best to teach whoever comes to my class that what the real yoga means, and yes.
Mother Atasha, she was a fan of this types of, what's popularly known as yoga. She said it was good for health. There's nothing wrong with it. It's keep the body fit. I even taught Mother Atasha how to do the sun salutation, the Surya Namaskar, which is a series of postures that she can do for her own health, to keep her body fit for service. So nothing wrong with these, but what is counterintuitive and not beneficial for our life ultimately is the illusion that these types of bodily exercises and postures are something spiritual in nature and are going to help us make progress in our spiritual life. That is not true. But my wife, who teaches these, again, these so-called yoga classes. Now, I have my own acronym for it. I call them MIGs, Modern Indian Gymnastic Sitting Postures. MIGs, which it doesn't really roll off the tongue. So I don't call it yoga. I call it yoga, just for my own kicks. But no one's going to come to Ramina's yoga classes if it didn't have the same name that everyone knows what it's called. But she does try to give knowledge. So when Ramina shares these physical exercises with these classes or one-on-one, she tries to incorporate a part of the class that puts a little devotional knowledge into it to kind of benefit their spiritual lives too. So it's not just the exercise. But then that's Ramina, because Ramina is a devotee, so she's a little, they're very fortunate to have her to learn these bodily exercises and some of the actual real yoga too.
That's my service, and that's my duty to do. And I got a really, really nice feedback that I'm just all by Lord mercy, by God mercy, that one of my students that I've been teaching her for a few months, she's the alcoholic, and she told me, I taught her to do chanting on the side of doing this bodily exercise, which is, I love yoga. I love this so-called yoga, this bodily exercise. I really love it. I do 3-4 times a week. Nothing's wrong with that. It's amazing for the health, for the physical health and mental health. And on the side, I'm teaching how they can do devotional service. And this student last week told me that she actually been stopped drinking alcohol for 40 days and she's clean, not just by doing physical exercises, not by doing yoga, also by the chanting the holy names of God. She's started doing baby steps, but it's wonderful. The progress is important. The result that she's gaining even by baby steps is important. And I praise the Lord that she's doing great. So
this is the wonderful effect of devotee association. So she's coming, just try to do these postures and look fit on Instagram, but instead she's being given association with someone engaged in devotional service, who has taught her how to chant the holy name, which is the greatest gift that you can give anyone. And she actually was able to hear. Her heart was opened by the kindness of my wife, who was teaching her, and she's practiced it. And what a wonderful, I guess you can say testimonial, nice review or feedback that, through chanting, she was able to even give up some destructive habits. She's not drinking. Hopefully she stays off the drink. She's an alcoholic. So that's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Then, all things in this material world, all things that we could possibly gain, whether fitness for our body or, zeros to our bank account or stripes on our shoulder, whatever accolades or accomplishments we can hope to get, they're all limited and temporary. Everything of this world is limited and temporary. But chanting the holy names, these devotional services, these give eternal results. They bring us step by step closer to the purification of our existence, back home to God in love. It's the greatest things we could possibly be doing. This is the real return on investment. This is the real self-help. This is the true occupation of the living entity, the devotional service. This is what we do in the spiritual world. And by engaging it in the material world, hearing, chanting, remembering the glories of God, we're re-establishing, reawakening our forgotten constitutional position as God's eternal, beloved servants. It's a relationship of love.
And one more thing that I always remember the teaching of Mother Natasha that said that, she said, care for the body which is temporary and the soul which is eternal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. As Prabhupada said, the great sages, they just focus on the minimum for the body. The majority of but they don't neglect the body. They don't just fast until starvation, till they're skin and bones and they just wither away. No, you still maintain the body. But you don't give it, too much attention. You don't see saints at the gym hitting the squat rack really hard. not that they couldn't. But the point is they don't want to spend more time than is necessary. They want to invest their time in this way more awesome stuff, which is the devotional service, where they're relishing transcendental bliss within their heart. Bliss and love of God. They'd rather be hearing, chanting, remembering, but still they eat, they sleep, they take care of the body, they do the needful. As they do the needful. Right, so we don't neglect care of the body. Not at all. Both are important. We don't give up material life when we become devotees. We still have these bodies. As long as we're in these bodies, we need to maintain and care for them.
So tell Yeti he's welcome to come to my class.
Yes. You hear that, Yeti? She's recruiting you to join her yoga classes. You guys can do some exercise and then at the end chant together. Because my wife's, teaching, so it won't just be the bodily. And she's very good. She's she doesn't make a business of this. She's she teaches by donation, which is very very, very sweet. Because it's not a money making thing for her. It's just to be of help to others. So.
Yeah, you see a lot of yoga classes, things like this, but it's all exercise,
Yes.
All ages welcome.
Yes. All exercises. My wife says my
You
wife's
see these women stretching on YouTube, showing you their yoga with their very tight leotards and showing their, camel toes and things like this. And you sort of say to
yeah.
okay.
They can be rather provocative. I guess that's what Prabhupada was saying. It's pretty much a mockery of the actual yoga system. It's basically.
I mean, they're flexible, but
My wife says that all ages are welcome, so she's poking at the age of your body.
And male and female.
Yes, and all ages, all genders, all whatever. Just that's what she's saying.
No, don't be cheeky.
She's doing a subtle plug for her yoga classes.
No.
I'm going to see some comments on it with links to join now, on the YouTube channel. No, she won't do that.
I was just joking.
Oh, she's doing it on YouTube, yeah?
I don't know what some video calls. She does, what do you,
Google.
Google Meet she's using. I don't know. I guess she could do it on Discord too. The platform's basically the same, video calling.
Live.
Yeah, but the people already got the address on the Google Meet, so.
He says he's going to think about it.
Okay.
Yes. For all our sakes, we hope you do not wear a leotard.
I will go easy on
Yeah,
it.
I'll wear my ballet pants on.
Your ballet pants? I never knew, Yeti. Well, learn more about you.
No, I didn't know either until now.
Oh, we're just having fun, but yeah. So, in a nutshell, we all. I hope anyone viewing this class and everyone, if you here, understand that what yoga actually means and what this, yoga practices and Ashtanga poses is all about. It's, what is today is not at all what's taught in the scriptures. It's not spiritual. The real spiritual, is in the devotional service of the Lord, and oh my goodness, the beautiful thing in spiritual life is that you don't have to make a drastic change to get started in spiritual life. You just have to add one thing to your life. That's it. Just add one thing. Add some devotional service. Just, you can still go to do your day job, still do your, exercises, still do whatever you do, but just add something into your life. Add some chanting. Add some hearing from God's message. Add some remembering. Add some hearing, chanting, memory, especially the chanting, because that's the easiest way to become disciplined in spiritual life. Just taking up chanting, just the simple recitation of God's names. My goodness, it's powerful. This student of my wife's, after regularly, she's chanting every day. She even bought herself some prayer beads. She's chanting a set number of rounds on the beads every single day. She's seen a radical transformation in her life. It's amazing, and for the better. She gave up, intoxicants. And wow, that's a big step for her. So all you have to do is just add a little something. Give a little love.
Closer to the Lord, by consuming a lot of alcohol, so you become into a special transcendental mind.
You're being cheeky, aren't you? No. No, I was speaking with a friend of mine just the other day. I invited him to class, but I guess he didn't have enough interest into it. He was thinking that drugs like DMT, mushrooms, things like that, he was adamant to say that they were spiritual and that they gave him spiritual experiences.
Well, they are natural, aren't they? Mind you, I've never had a mushroom.
He tried to rationalize, saying, well, DMT, the chemical, is already in your body. It's already part of your body. It's natural to it. And I'm like, still not selling me on this idea. Because if you've seen...
I don't even know what DMT is.
Oh, DMT is a very hard drug. It's supposedly derived from organic compounds, but I don't know the exact chemistry of it. But basically, they're smoking something, and it hits them like an absolute truck. And for a matter of seconds, literally just seconds, which for them feels like hours, they go on this total trip. Right? But that's not spiritual at all. Mother Atasha taught that the difference between...
Well, how would you know, mate, if you haven't tried it?
Well, I've never tried DMT, but in my youth, before coming to spiritual life, I did a lot of drugs. Some were hallucinogenics, psychoactives, and I can even say from experience, it's nothing like the real thing. The actual spiritual consciousness, which by the Lord's mercy I've had a few tastes of over the years. Not that I've been seeking them, but by the Lord's causeless mercy. And the more my consciousness is becoming more and more purified through regular chanting, my life is getting happier and happier and happier overall in general. And I'm familiar with those, hit you like a truck, drug-induced euphorias and mentalities, but it's not spiritual, not at all. In fact, they're actually in the mode of ignorance. These things, they cloud our consciousness even more. And Mother Atasha warned that when you go high with these drugs, you usually come down lower than when you started. And there's every possibility of going mad. And I've seen people go mad with drugs. I've personally seen this. So that it's all illusion. That telling ourselves that these drugs or intoxicants are a spiritual thing or a spiritual experience. It's just our own false ego talking. It's us wanting to give some form of authenticity or legitimacy to what we're doing, when really it's just for our own recreation. That's all it is. It's recreation. I know this friend I was speaking with, it was for his own kicks. They're not trying to get closer to God by doing the drugs. But this particular friend, though, he actually is quite spiritual minded, and he does desire God. But this is not the means of attaining enlightenment by taking drugs. Mother Natasha would say, God is not so cheap. You think God is that cheap? You just take some drugs and you reach God, reach nirvana, cessation of material desires, while you are engaged in the most mundane of material activities, intoxicating your mind, clouding it further rather than clearing the cloud of ignorance, of illusion. It's very, very counterintuitive. So, what was the first step of that ashtanga, the yamas, the do nots, right? What was it? Or the do's, niyama, cleanliness of your mind and body, and no intoxications. Keep your mind and your body as pure as possible. Don't intoxicate it more. And there's terrible side effects to these drugs. Don't take my word for it. There's plenty of documentaries on the degradation of those who've abused drugs. So, but yeah, it's not spiritual or holy at all. Yes, they are part of nature, and some of them are very medicinal. Some of these herbs, things of nature, but medicines have their place. If you have a particular disease, Mother Natasha said, we are given dispensation to accept medicine. So if the medicine itself is intoxicating, but that is the remedy, the cure for the disease, well, that's not breaking your vow of no intoxication. But let's be honest, everyone doing drugs is doing it, so they can feel good. And it's a temporary feeling they're after. They're seeking the temporary rather than seeking the eternal. Because the actual disease of material life is material life, is material consciousness. That is the disease. And the cure for that, is the devotional service. That's the only thing that's actually going to cleanse that away, bring us back to love. Only by the spiritual can you cleanse the material, or spiritualize our material mind and senses. You can't put a material thing into your material body and hope to get a spiritual experience. It's not how things work. Even though we tell ourselves that's what we want to work. No. Anywho, you want to reach the Lord? Do what the Lord say. Very simple. You want to come to love? Follow in the footsteps of those who were loved. So anywho, we're about out of time. Any last comment or question, anybody? And
Fine.
perhaps by association, the neighbors back here have come to some samadhi, Mind you, one last thing, that word samadhi, samadhi just means complete remembrance of God. That's basically what samadhi means. And you don't have to be like in a meditative posture to be in a state of samadhi. A pure devotee of God who's out and about preaching, working amongst the people, whose consciousness is completely in loving service, they are in samadhi, because they never for one moment forget God. And it's not through a mechanical means of the body and breath, no. It's through devotional service and being reinstated in their natural position as this eternal servant lover of God. So, Jai. All glories to Mother Atasha, all glories to Religion of Love, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the Bhagavad Gita, and all glories to our Supreme Lord. Jai.